A ghost ship beneath the waves. Imagine discovering that your own government has been lying to you. Not about something small, but about 53 lost sailors, a missing nuclear submarine, and a cover-up that stretched across 3 oceans. That's exactly what happened to Rear Admiral Catherine Kate Sullivan in 2018, when a routine patrol turned into the discovery that would shake the foundations of the United States Navy and cost her everything she worked for. This is the story of what happened when one person refused to accept the official narrative and what she found when she kept searching. The youngest admiral in modern history. At 42 years old, Kate Sullivan was already a legend in the Navy. She had been the youngest woman to command a destroyer, the first female submarine officer to earn her dolphins, and at age 40, she became one of the youngest rear admirals in modern naval history. Her rise had been meteoric, fueled by exceptional intelligence, flawless judgment, and an unwavering commitment to the truth. That last quality, her commitment to truth, would be both her greatest strength and, ultimately, the thing that would destroy her career. In January 2018, Kate was given command of a carrier strike group conducting extended operations in the Western Pacific. It was a prestigious assignment, a clear signal that she was being groomed for even higher command. The mission was straightforward: maintain American naval presence, conduct training exercises with Allied forces, and monitor maritime activity in a region of increasing strategic importance. What wasn't in the official mission brief was the search for USS Scorpion II, the submarine that never existed. The USS Scorpion II was a Virginia-class fast attack submarine, one of the most advanced underwater vessels ever built. In July 2017, while conducting classified operations in the South China Sea, the Scorpion II had missed its scheduled communication window. Then it missed the next one, and the next. Navy protocol for missing submarines is clear and immediate. Massive search operations are launched. Every available resource is deployed. Submarines don't just disappear, and when they do, the Navy moves heaven and earth to find them and bring the crew home. But that's not what happened with the Scorpion II. Instead, the Navy declared the submarine and its crew of 53 sailors lost in a classified training accident. The families were notified with carefully worded letters expressing regret but providing almost no details. A memorial service was held. The submarine was struck from the Naval Register, and officially, that was the end of the story. Except it wasn't an accident, and the submarine wasn't destroyed. It was drifting, powerless and silent in international waters, and the Navy knew exactly where it was. The strange orders. Kate's first hint that something was wrong came on her 43rd day at sea. She received classified orders to alter her strike group's patrol route. Nothing unusual about that. Operational plans change constantly based on intelligence and strategic needs. But the new route didn't make tactical sense. It took her group away from areas of actual strategic interest and toward empty ocean. When she questioned the orders through proper channels, she received a terse response: execute orders as given, do not deviate, do not discuss. Kate was a flag officer with decades of experience. She understood operational security, but she also understood naval operations, and these orders felt wrong. They felt like she was being steered away from something, rather than toward any strategic objective. She executed the orders, but she also started paying closer attention. Over the next several weeks, Kate noticed a pattern. Every time her strike group approached a certain area of the Philippine Sea, her orders would change, routing her away. Radio communications from Fleet Command became more terse and less explanatory. Intelligence briefings that should have included comprehensive maritime tracking data were suddenly redacted or incomplete. And then there was the message traffic she wasn't supposed to see: the intercepted communication. Kate had served in intelligence early in her career, and she maintained relationships with signals intelligence personnel throughout the fleet. One of those relationships proved crucial. A young communications officer, whom Kate had mentored years earlier, noticed something odd in the encrypted message traffic and, against protocol, brought it to Kate's attention. It was a fragment of a communication between Pacific Fleet Command and a classified Navy recovery unit. Most of it was heavily encrypted, but the fragment that had been partially decoded mentioned maintaining econ around package and concealing drift track from surveillance assets. Econ meant emissions control, keeping electronics silent. A package in Navy parlance usually meant a vessel or special operations asset, and concealing drift track suggested something was moving unpowered through the ocean, drifting with currents. Kate's blood ran cold. There was only one thing that would drift like that and require this level of secrecy: a dead submarine. But according to official records, there were no missing submarines. The Scorpion II had been declared lost with all hands 9 months earlier. Case closed. Unless it wasn't closed. Unless the submarine wasn't destroyed, but disabled. Unless it was still out there, drifting, and the Navy knew exactly where it was. Breaking orders. For 3 days, Kate wrestled with what she knew and what she suspected. She had orders to stay away from that region. She had a career that could be destroyed by a single act of insubordination. She had no proof, only fragments of intelligence and a gut feeling that something was terribly wrong. But she also had 53 families who had been told their loved ones were dead. 53 sailors who might still be alive in a disabled submarine waiting for rescue that wasn't coming. Or, if they were dead, 53 families who deserved to know what really happened. On day 147 of the deployment, Kate made her decision. During a scheduled exercise that gave her legitimate reasons to maneuver her strike group, she altered course toward the restricted zone. She told her staff she was investigating a potential sonar contact. Not technically a lie, since she was indeed looking for a submarine. Fleet Command's response was immediate and furious. She received direct orders to cease her current heading and return to her assigned patrol area. When she requested clarification about the nature of the restriction, she was told it was classified above her clearance level. That's when Kate knew for certain she was right. Rear admirals with strike group commands don't get told things are classified above their clearance level unless someone is hiding something major. She pressed forward. The discovery. On day 190 of the deployment, Kate's strike group entered the restricted zone. Her anti-submarine warfare team, confused but professional, began conducting search patterns. Kate didn't tell them what they were looking for. She just told them to find anything unusual. It took 18 hours, and then a sonar operator on one of the accompanying destroyers detected it. A large metallic object, submarine-sized, drifting at a depth of approximately 400 feet. It wasn't moving under its own power. It was drifting with the current, slowly, silently, a dead hulk in the dark water. Kate ordered the deployment of a remotely operated vehicle to investigate. What the ROV's cameras revealed was both heartbreaking and infuriating. It was the USS Scorpion II. There was no question. The submarine's identification numbers were clearly visible on the hull. But the submarine wasn't destroyed. There was no catastrophic hull breach, no evidence of explosion or fire. Instead, there was damage consistent with a collision, likely with an underwater obstacle or possibly another vessel. The submersion's propulsion appeared disabled, and it looked like the crew had executed an emergency shutdown and ballast procedures to keep the boat from sinking to crush depth. Based on the evidence, the submarine had likely been disabled suddenly, but hadn't suffered immediate catastrophic failure. In other words, the crew had probably survived the initial incident. They had probably been alive, waiting for rescue, while the Navy told their families they were dead and declared the submarine lost. Kate felt sick, but she kept recording, kept documenting, kept gathering evidence. That's when her communications were cut. The confrontation. Within 2 hours of discovering the Scorpion II, Kate's encrypted communication systems were remotely locked out by Fleet Command. She could receive orders, but couldn't transmit beyond her immediate strike group. It was unprecedented, essentially isolating a flag officer and her entire command. The orders that came through were unequivocal. Cease all operations in current location. Return to assigned patrol area immediately. Destroy all ROV footage. Submit to classified debriefing upon return to port. Discuss matter with no one. Kate faced a choice. She could follow orders, destroy the evidence, participate in the cover-up, and probably save her career. Or she could refuse, preserve the evidence, and face the consequences. She gathered her senior staff and made a decision that she knew would end her career. She told them what she'd found. She showed them the ROV footage. And she told them that she intended to preserve the evidence and ensure it reached the proper authorities, even if it meant court-martial. To her surprise and eternal gratitude, her staff stood with her. Every single officer, even knowing the career implications, agreed that the truth had to come out. Kate ordered copies of all evidence transferred to multiple secure locations. She prepared detailed reports, and then she sent a communication through a back channel to a congressional oversight committee that handled classified military matters. The reaction was swift and severe. The price of truth. Kate was relieved of command within 6 hours. She was ordered to transfer her flag to a transport vessel and return immediately to Pearl Harbor. Her second-in-command was placed in temporary command of the strike group with explicit orders to avoid any further contact with the discovered submarine. When Kate arrived at Pearl Harbor, she was met by Navy Criminal Investigative Service agents. Her personal effects were searched. Her communications were monitored. She was placed under a form of house arrest while the Navy decided what to do with her. For 3 weeks, Kate was interrogated, debriefed, and pressured to sign a non-disclosure agreement that would prevent her from ever discussing what she'd discovered. The Navy's position was that she had violated operational security, exceeded her authority, and compromised a classified recovery operation. Kate refused to sign. She had broken no laws. She had discovered evidence of a potential cover-up, and she had a duty to report it through proper channels, which she had done. The Navy couldn't court-martial her because she hadn't actually violated any orders until she had already discovered the submarine and initiated the evidence preservation. And by then, congressional oversight was involved, which complicated any military prosecution. Instead, they offered her a deal: retire immediately with full pension and benefits, sign the non-disclosure agreement, and the matter would be closed. Otherwise, they would find administrative reasons to damage her career, revoke her security clearances, and ensure she never worked in any defense-related capacity again. Kate took the deal, but she didn't stay silent. The truth emerges. The Congressional Oversight Committee, working with Kate's evidence and conducting their own classified investigation, eventually pieced together what had happened to the Scorpion II. The submarine had been conducting intelligence operations near a disputed maritime zone when it collided with an underwater obstacle, possibly a submerged shipping container or debris from illegal fishing operations. The collision had damaged the propulsion system and caused flooding in the engine compartment, but the submarine had remained intact and the crew had survived. The Scorpion II had surfaced briefly to transmit a distress signal, which was received by Pacific Fleet Command. A recovery operation should have been immediately launched, but here's where it got complicated. The submarine had been conducting intelligence operations that were diplomatically sensitive. Recovery would require sailing Navy vessels into disputed waters, potentially creating an international incident. And the presence of American nuclear submarines in that area was something the U.S. government officially denied. Rather than risk the diplomatic and strategic complications of an immediate public recovery operation, a decision was made at very high levels to delay. The plan was to wait for the submarine to drift into less contested waters, then conduct a covert recovery operation. But the submarine drifted slower than expected. Days turned into weeks, and at some point the focus shifted from rescuing the crew to managing the political fallout. Eventually, someone made the horrific calculation that it would be easier to declare the submarine lost and the crew dead than to explain why a nuclear submarine was where it shouldn't have been and why rescue had been delayed. The Navy went ahead with memorial services while the submarine was still intact, the crew still alive, drifting in the dark water, waiting for rescue that would never come. The aftermath. The congressional investigation remained classified, but key findings were leaked to the press. The resulting scandal was devastating. Multiple high-ranking Navy officers were forced into retirement. The Secretary of the Navy resigned. Congressional hearings were held, though much of the testimony remained classified. Kate never returned to active duty, but her actions were quietly acknowledged within parts of the Navy as having done the right thing. Some called her a hero, others called her a traitor. Most just wished she had looked the other way. The families of the Scorpion II crew received official apologies, increased benefits, and the truth about how their loved ones died. It was cold comfort, but it was more than they'd been given before. Kate wrote a memoir, though it was heavily redacted by government censors before publication. She became an advocate for military accountability and congressional oversight of classified operations. She testified before Congress on multiple occasions about the need for checks and balances, even in matters of national security. The questions that remain. Kate Sullivan's story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. How many other times has the government prioritized political convenience over the lives of service members? How many families have been lied to about how their loved ones really died? How many cover-ups remain hidden because no one with access to the truth had Kate's courage to expose it? And perhaps most importantly, what happens when following orders means participating in something fundamentally wrong? Kate had built her entire career on discipline, on following the chain of command, on trusting the system. The moment she discovered that system was corrupt, she had to choose between her career and her conscience. She chose conscience. It cost her everything she'd worked for. The stars on her collar, the command of ships, the trajectory toward the highest levels of naval leadership. But it gave her something else, the certainty that when it mattered most, she did the right thing. The legacy. Today, naval regulations have been modified to include specific protocols for submarine distress situations that can't be ignored or overridden for political considerations. It's called the Scorpion Protocol, though most people don't know why it has that name. Submarine crews now have multiple independent communication systems for emergencies, with built-in safeguards that prevent command from suppressing distress signals. Congressional oversight of classified naval operations has been strengthened, and there are clearer protections for service members who report misconduct through proper channels. These changes didn't happen because the system wanted to reform itself. They happened because one person found evidence of something terrible and refused to let it stay buried. Kate Sullivan gave up her career, her reputation, within parts of the military establishment, and the future she'd planned. In exchange, she got 53 families some measure of truth and closure. She got reforms that might prevent similar tragedies. And she got to look at herself in the mirror, knowing she hadn't compromised her principles, even when the cost was steep. Was it worth it? Kate has never expressed regret about her decision, even on the hardest days. Those 53 sailors didn't get a choice, she said in one of her rare interviews. They couldn't choose whether to drift in the dark, waiting for rescue. They couldn't choose whether their families would know the truth. I had a choice, and I chose to honor their sacrifice by making sure their story was told. What we can learn. Kate Sullivan's story isn't just about submarines and admirals and classified operations. It's about the choices we all face when we discover that something is fundamentally wrong. Do we look away? Do we rationalize? Do we tell ourselves that it's not our problem, that someone else will handle it, that we don't have enough information to be sure? Or do we take the risk? Do we speak up, even when it's dangerous? Do we stand for truth, even when it costs us? Most of us will never face a choice as dramatic as Kate's, but will face smaller versions of that same choice in our workplaces, our communities, our families. We'll discover lies that need to be exposed, misconduct that needs to be reported, injustices that need to be addressed. And in those moments, Kate's story reminds us that integrity isn't about choosing right over wrong when it's easy. It's about choosing right over wrong when everything you've worked for is on the line. If Admiral Sullivan's courage inspired you, don't let this story disappear. Like this video to honor the 53 sailors of the USS Scorpion II and the Admiral who fought for their truth. Subscribe for more untold stories of courage, sacrifice, and the price of integrity. Share with anyone who needs to be reminded that some things are worth fighting for, even when the cost is everything you've built. Comment: have you ever had to choose between career and conscience, or witness someone make that difficult choice? What happened? Let's honor those who choose truth over convenience. Remember, the truth doesn't cost us as much as living with a lie. And sometimes the person who loses everything by exposing the truth gains something far more valuable: the certainty that when it mattered most, they did the right thing.